Hi, everybody, and welcome. Um, this topic is something that's somewhat near and dear to my heart, only because in the past couple of months, I've been talking to various users, and they're uh, they've expressed needs around exporting information and ways of enhancing their exports, typically Excel, and that's basically what we're going to exemplify today, Excel, but um, enhancing their reports, Excel reports, with some type of value indicators that their users can sort and so forth. And by that I mean, if I jump to the next page, you'll see this is an example of something that we'll be building through the course of the session, but you'll notice categories, age and year, team size, market size, technical complexities, assignees, and then the typical title abstract. You might throw in here a document identifier and so forth, but what I'm going to be focusing on are these elements here and how to come up with them, and where you might find them beneficial, as including them with the other fields that you're reporting out with. And also maybe hopefully time will allow us to talk about other things like adding images within these reports and how to designate various elements or various parts of an image in terms of the documents underlying some data point within an image, and so on. So a little bit about the agenda. I'm going to really exemplify doing this in Excel, as I said, and we're going to talk about this VP and VantagePoint indicators. And these are simple indicators. They're nothing about, using math to a high degree and so forth, even though that is possible within our formula builder, which we'll be talking about in a future presentation. But these are just, counting and looking at date differences and so forth as indicators. And then how to build this within the templates. This is critical, making it consistent from analysis to analysis, your template field names and so forth, matching the data that you're analyzing. We'll go and demonstrate how this plays out, and I'll build a couple of fields and show you the exports. And then it might be pretty intuitive or obvious. We do have an export image link or button, several options in terms of formats. I'm going to play around with the PNG format and how that can be added to your Excel workbook, Excel reports, and build an Excel workbook with that represents your full analysis, graphics, and everything. And then touch on, lastly, the scripts that are in the system that some of you probably aren't that familiar with, plotting lists and matrix in Excel. So with that said, let's just jump into it. So indicators. We put together this table, and I have to say I discussed this with my colleagues, and trying to make it as clear as possible as we go through these columns. This is the function that you would use and this is the data that you would apply that function on, counting terms per record. We'll talk about that in a little more detail. This is basically counting unique items within the field. That's what the function is happening. And then ultimately, what you would call that, basically a team size. So if you have, let's just imagine 20 records, one of the records has one inventor, two of the records have 5 inventors, another 3 have 7 inventors. What you're going to end up with is basically a count where there are so many records that have 7 inventors, so many records that have so many and so forth. So we'll get into this in more detail, but just kind of think of that as a way of, in this case, I'm calling it team size. And I'm saying inventor, and I apologize, only that, we can work with literature and authors, and if we have time, I can demonstrate that as well. And then there's this whole calculation of looking at the information with regard to time differences. There is time differences with respect to the timestamp on the document, and as it relates to how old it is with regard to today's date. In the patent literature, we like to look at the time span between when a document is actually first filed and when it was first published. And I'm calling this my age, my document age. So these are two of the ways of these simple indicators are built, and then there's other ways of looking at information. So just going through here, if we look at document counts of the country, basically the patent family countries or the affiliation country, we can count the size of the families. So those of you who may not be familiar with patent families, they're filed all over the world. And so a family, the countries that they're filed in, the number of different countries they're filed in indicates just how important that invention is, because it's very expensive to file these documents in a large number of countries. So calling that market size, because when you go into these countries, file for patent protection, the ultimate goal is to sell whatever product that is protected by that patent. The counting of classifications. Some documents only have one classification, one mesh term, one IPC. Some documents have 10. The more there are classifications, the technical complexity, I'm calling this technical complexity. We looked at age in years, but there's also the age as I mentioned, the date of today versus when the document published 10 years ago. How many years is it? How old is that document in years? And then also this is working with NLP terms and your categories that you've placed within a classification. In this example, we're working with the sleep molecule that we've been working with throughout these webinars, and I've categorized them, in the area of sleep and diet or eating, and I believe psychological or no, cardiovascular. But this is another indicator that you can apply to the data. So as with that said, if we go through this and just reinforce that, you'll notice here are my indicators: categories, age in years, team size, market size, technical complexity. This is based on the IPCs. This is based on the patent families. This is based on the number of inventors. This is based on the difference between the priority year, filing year, and the publication year. And these are my categories: my cardio, eating, and so forth. And so each row represents a document, and each document has a signee, or in this case, these different signees. And then we have the related title and abstract. So your audience could go in and say, gee, I'm only interested in if they filter on Merck, Sharp, and Dohm. They'll be able to focus on Merck, Sharp, and Dohm. I'm looking for technical complexity within Merck, Sharp, and Dohm. They'll filter on, or they'll sort on that to find the highest number of documents that have the most IPCs, and then they'll be able to understand and prioritize which documents to read first within this data, within the data. Now, I'm going to back up and say these are indicators. These are very simple indicators, and people can argue, they're significant in value, but what we're getting at here is just some type of relative measure. We're not talking about, a value judgment here. We're just giving the recipient of this report the ability to prioritize how they want to look at this data, especially if they get 200 or 400 records, how to manage that. So in this whole process, templates. Once you've built a template that recognizes these fields and their names, team size, age in years, technical complexity, that would be a field name that your template would recognize, and you could then take advantage of that throughout the analysis, and I'll demonstrate that. So if you go into the templates area, which is basically export records, export field records, you'll notice you'll come up with this dialog box. And in opening up the change field to export, you'll see here are my fields that I have defined. And I've basically built this template and saved it using the save button here, so that when I come into this template and I've built these within my data, they'll always be recognized. And if I've made a mistake in how I've spelt this, it'll tell you right away that something's wrong with a field, or a field is missing. But to give you a sense of this, let's just go through and stepwise talk about how inventor team size might be made. You'll notice the field is basically you copy, you count, and you rename the field. So you're always taking a field, the native data, you want to make a copy of that field, and that copy is the item that you're going to ultimately apply your name to it. In this case, team size. So inventor name cleaned. If you copy it, it'll be named cleaned, and then you can basically take and count the items within that field. And you would have it show up as name cleaned, and it'll show it as the copy, but it also give you this new indication here of that it's a count field or a count unique. And when you right click on that name field, you can then rename it to team size. So that's just one way, and we'll go through the steps live just to make sure this is understood. And then dealing with time differences, calculating date differences, and then renaming the field. So you'll see that we're looking at the publication date and as it relates to the priority date. And telling the system to calculate the years, and you'll have the option to calculate the months or even the days between these two date differences. And once that is counted, you then rename it, and I just renamed it age and years. So it's whatever's meaningful to you. And so just to give you a sense, this is my team size. And unfortunately, and this is just true of all, there are 160 documents within this data set that have no author or no inventors at all, for whatever reason. But there's 121 with 2 authors. There happens to be one in there which has 21 authors. So so that this is what I mean by team size, and we'll use this in the export. And here again, this is my age. So 2 years, 1 year, 3 years, 10 years, 5 years, and so on. I looked at this record, and basically they had the two switched, the publication and the priority year switched, so and there's sometimes the erroneous data, but it is what it is, and just you'll find this out as you work with some of your data. Sometimes, you have these errors in the data, but ultimately, usually what you're looking at is some key companies or key organizations, affiliations, and these small numbers fall out. They usually don't show up in the data, but let's just kind of bring that out. And so again, we're going to be building these elements within the data sheet. So let me switch over to VantagePoint, and I'll just toggle over here and come over to this Orexin PAT-based data. So you notice here down, I'm in the tab of data, the data set of PAT-based data. And also there's a data set in here of PubMed data that we can work with as well. And so let's just go in and focus on those two fields, the age field and the team size field. And to illustrate that they need to be built, let's go into the export area first and just show you that template. So these are the fields that are currently just in the data ready to be exported. If I were to go export, it would export an Excel spreadsheet. All 45 fields would show up in that spreadsheet, 45 columns of data, and the number of records, which is the number of records that I'm working with here. We don't want to do that. We want to build out a template. So change fields. And we could go in and build that just by picking and choosing, moving information from one panel to the other. Now, if I go up here, you'll notice that I have export of all the fields, and I have my indicators. And if I select my indicators, this is how I've basically built this. I've pulled these fields off of the data and put that into this indicator, PAT-based indicator, and lo and behold, looks like the age in years and the team size is missing. So let's fix that. So I'm just going to cancel this out, and I'm going to build these two fields. Illustrate using counting as well as looking at the date differences. So let's go over to refine, and you'll notice here's that capability or function, count terms per record. It's within the fields area of the refine tab. And I'm going to use the filter to the inventor field. So and you'll notice here we have inventor cleaned. And I'm going to right click on inventor cleaned, and I'm going to make a copy of this field because this is the field I'm going to be working with. I can go with that, or I can add another name, but let's just go with that because this is already in the data. So I'll just call this, just add a number to it. So here we have this copy of the field, and usually, this is typical behavior. It generates a list. I'm just going to close this list and go back over to the summary sheet, and I'm going to go find that field again now. So copy, and whoops. Here's my copied field. So there was one earlier. So just to show, save confusion, I'm going to delete this duplicated field and go in here and use this field to do the counting. So if I go into count terms per record, I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to look for this field. So copy would be one way of doing it. I love this filtering to fields, and it's going to give me a new name with this count unique. And right here, I could say, I'm just going to go with team size, and it will give me this new field, team size. And here we have, the information in that new field. If I go back over and put in team size, you'll see here's a new field. Okay, so that's just counting data. And if you think about it, just another example of counting data. If I go in I'd like to know the market information, I'm calling it, which is basically based on these patent families. And so the family, here's my family information. Here's my families that if I select this, it's going to count them. And you'll see, you know, there are a lot of documents that have been filed in only one country. Documents filed in 2 countries, but there's some significant documents that have been filed in these different, you know, very, very broad reaches that could help in terms of indicating the importance. A lot of resources go into filing in these multiple jurisdictions. So, you know, if I go over and I go, I'm just going to go in unique. No, I'm going to go family. And you'll see, here's my family information here that if I right click and rename, I would call this market, you know, market size. And I think there's already one in here, so I'll just call this 2. So if I go over and MARKET, yes, there's 2 of them here. So just, you know, for save confusion, I'm going to delete the field I just made. Now we have all of our fields made. Some of them I've made, you know, previously. And let's go in and start exporting information. So the export capability is over in the reports tab, over in the report exports. And you'll see, here's my dialog, and I go in and I want to find that particular indicator. And for some reason, I misspelled. Let me see, just going down here, if I go, it's literal, even to case sensitive. Nope, I didn't build that, did I? Nope. Well, let's cancel this and make this an opportunity. So go back to the summary sheet and go into the age information and how to calculate date differences. That's over in the Analyze tab, and you'll notice date differences in the Calculate area. So open that up, and we're going to build this out by putting in the information that we want. So you'll see these 2 options, the first date and the second date. So we're going to look at the differences of these 2 dates. And in this case, we're going to go with dates that are in the data. So the first date would be the priority date. And I'm going to go with priority date earliest. And then the second would be the publication date. And I'm going to go with publication date earliest. And this is going to be then the information that I'm going to generate as my in years, but you'll notice the options of these, you can make it in months and weeks and so forth. So if I select this, you'll notice that it's going to come back, and here's my data, you know, number of records, 426 that have been around for 2 years, for 1 year, even less than a year, and then so on and so forth. And this information has generated this new field that you'll notice. It's basically this new field that if I go back over and pull it up, just go to the summary sheet and go to publication. And you'll notice there's already one built. But let's just take this and rename it. So I'm going to rename it, and what was that again? It was all caps, and then parentheses, years, and let's check this out. So I'm going to go over to report and into the export area and go into find my indicator, pat-based indicator, and lo and behold, there we have it. So I could go with all of the records in the data, but let's do that a little. Let's pick something a little more manageable. So what we do here is, once this is set up, I have to focus on certain documents that I'd like to export. If I go with, for example, I'm going to go over and go over to the summary sheet, which I'm already at, but remove the filter, look at my assignees, and look at the assignee cleaned information, and possibly look at my target companies that I'm interested in, and go back and decide that that's what I'd like to export. So whatever I've selected here, if I go over and now I have the 317, also this is an indicator in the title panel of the data that I've selected here in that group. I'm going to go over and pick that indicator list. And so these are going to be the fields that we're going to export out into the export area. So if I just export, I'm going to go into, I've got lots of exports here, so I'm just going to go so I can differentiate it, and then open them up. So if I go to sleep talk, this is the one I just made, and then you can just see what we do here. So here we are, basically with the data, and tidy it up, apply a filter, and so forth, and so on. I basically give colors, I bold it up, but just so you a sense, this is what we're looking at now. And we now can start looking at, I'm only interested in looking at the items with 10, and then looking at the abstract, the title, the abstract over here, and so forth. So that's pretty much it. Those of you who are really live in the world of dealing with publications, we can just jump over quickly and show you a little bit about doing the same thing in PubMed. PubMed, if I go to export and I look at my PubMed indicators, time cited, author group size, I'm calling it, and I have ages and years. A little different in terms of what I've designated information, but just to give you a sense of building this out, if we go over to information in PubMed, time cited, for example, here we have time cited here, but I like to make it more in my template language. If I just basically copy field and I can make this new field, and you'll notice if I go back over, here we go here. This is the copy of that field here. If I want to look at date information, how old the documents are in years, go over to the Analyze tab and build out the date differences. In this case, we're going to go with the date published, and I'll just use the date published, and then I'll pick a date. So this is the date, and it defaults to today's date. So the information will be shown in this manner. If I click OK, it will give me now the documents that are 3 years old, and so forth. And so, this can be quite useful. There's something here that's 47 years old in this data. And then what was the last one? It was that was age, and also if I go back over here and unfilter, you'll see this is the field. If I copy this field, just copy field, and then I'm going to just age, years, and that's a new copy of that field, and you'll see it here, age, year, but and here we have a new field. And then finally, the other one was we have time cited author count. So if you have authors here, you'll notice I've already built author count, But just to show you how you might do that, if I take author name and copy the field, I think I pretty much illustrated all of this, and we should go into now the report, just for time's sake, see if we have them all now. Here's our PubMed indicator. So author group size. So that seems to be missing. I'm just going to close this out and go into author group size and basically copy the field. Just checking here. So here we've done it. We've already counted them. And if I go to author name here and right click, do I see that function? I don't see it here. So just go over to the Refine tab, count author name. So we have here author name, and this is going to go number 2, just to build that out. And again, so now we have that field that we can take and just basically rename. And what are we calling it? We're calling it author group size. I believe that's what I called it. So if I go over to reports, and we're ready to go. Obviously not going to take all these records, but similar process. Don't need to repeat. I think I hope it's clear. So that's how this is all kind of plays out. If I go back over now to just kind of continue with our presentation, I want to just round this out by talking about exporting images and how to take advantage of those. If I just toggle over to a VantagePoint, go back over to my path-based data, you'll notice export images. So I have some images in here. For example, here's basically a bubble chart that if I want to export image, you have these 4 options. What I've discovered is pretty much that if you're inserting these images into documents, I would go with PNG. And in selecting this, you'll notice that here's my images. Basically, just add something to that, save, and it should open up here and just give you a sense of what we're looking at. So this would then be inserted into a document. And you'll notice the little round selection here, a way of indicating possibly I'm looking at these documents in the report, and I'll indicate that as well. So with that in play, you can imagine this is a factor map. We're looking at impaired sleep, wakefulness documents that we'd like to look at in the report. We've noticed anxiety disorder, vascular disease, reports that are actually publications that are talking about these all at once. We can look at and exporting these selected documents, and as I showed, the bubble chart and so on. So at the end of the day, we come up with a workbook. The workbook is the assignees information with their indicators that the user can look through, and then maybe the factor map, and this highlighted, and in the next tab, the documents behind that information exported, and then on down the line, the documents that talk about these 4 key areas with regard to sleep issues are related into this tab, and then so on and so forth, the bubble chart, and then the documents really focusing on the fact that Merck, Sharp, and Dome is actually the only only company working within that graphic. So that's just here again, kind of throwing out this as an idea, suggestion, a way to make your exports to improve them. So the last thing I just wanted to talk about is these plotting information. Quite handy, just being able to take scripts and run a script on a simple matrix and have that represented as a pivot chart within Excel or a list. Just to illustrate that, if I go back over to VantagePoint, and I need a matrix. So let's make a matrix of my top assignees and my categories. So if I just run that, then I can go over to the Analyze tab, bring up the matrix, and it's going to bring up the matrix building dialog box. And I'm going to go with my categories that I had developed through the presentation. There's 3 items, sleep, eating, and cardiovascular. And I want to look at the top assignees that I have here. So there's 10 companies. And if I select this, I can represent this now by selecting it all, and you might go up and select all, and then go over to, you'll notice I'm in the Analyze tab, run scripts, and there's a lot of very useful scripts in here, but let's just go with plot matrix in Excel, and you'll see that it will run through the paces, and this book is ready, and it should show up down here in my tray. So it gives you the data itself, as I noticed in sheet 1, but also several types of graphics that represent this data. So very, very handy, and you might just try playing with that in the future just to see how useful that can be. So I believe that pretty much wraps it up for today. I can throw out, take some time now to take your questions.
Thank you, Rick. We have a feel free to, if you enter a question in the Q&A or chat, and also it's a small enough group, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you and just ask it out loud. Any questions? Any comments? Anybody use these features before?
No questions, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, Christine is asking, when you for the exporting a pivot table from VP to Excel, when you choose the Excel export, it does not include the totals. Why?
Well, actually, if you go over and I believe there's if I select this, you can include that in it. The data is there. Is that what you mean? I'm sorry.
Yeah, perhaps it was just the graphic that you showed didn't have the totals, but the data is there. And depending on, sure, I'm gonna unmute. I'm gonna mute Kristen. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's actually from a pivot table in VantagePoint. So like the tool pivot table, then you have your nice pivot table and you have whatever you choose, and then you have the total at the end. But when you choose, I'm not sure if it's Excel or table format but when you choose that last one, so it's easy to export in Excel, then the total disappear. So it's not from a matrix, it's really from the pivot tool.
So you're asking from the pivot tool.
Yeah.
So if I go top assignees,
because like sometimes you can do in the pivot tool almost the same thing as a matrix, but sometimes you need more filters, or you need like another, I don't know, the years or whatever, or doesn't really matter.
So let's go with our age field. Here we go.
So like at the top left corner, instead of table, if you choose Excel export format, like the 504 disappeared, like for the first line. The 504 does, if you come back to the first, like you see there, the total column, it says 504. But in the export, like Excel or Excel export format, 504 is not there anymore. Like 91, 132, 182, 99.
Yep.
And then this last column is not there. It would be kind of useful that it stays there, because like we found a workaround that we create a field with just all our publication and we make that appear kind of by default in our pivot table in the pivot tool. But it's like a step that kind of, it's just a field with all publications. Like you're in our data set, you get a tick in that field basically.
Sure. No,
just,
good point. I'm sure I'll talk to John and see if we can release that in the, our upcoming release in 16.
And it just makes it much easier. It would make it much easier, which is not a big deal, but
okay,
just pointing it out. Thank you.
You bet.
Great, thank you. We love those kind of it's that kind of feedback from users on what's important. Any other questions, comments?
Was this useful? Just anybody have any feedback about just the nature of the presentation? Did it make sense? Don't be shy.
Okay, if not, we're just going to end this month's webinar. And we will hopefully see many of you next month, and look out for the next month's topic and registration link in the newsletter, which you'll see in a couple weeks. Have a great day, evening, morning, whatever. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.